Well, hello there. My name is Dave Vila. I want to welcome you today to this new edition of News and Views, broadcast by LaPorte County on Public Access TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, and national topics and issues of interest to the Michigan City and surrounding areas. Opinions are the views and the responsibilities of those making comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its co-producers. We will adhere to broadcast rules. Absolutely no one's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. Any unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program without the express written consent of its co-producers, Larry, Curly, or Schmo, is strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy the program, the discussion, and the participants. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, I was in such a hurry today. I jumped out of the shower, went to the closet, put on my orange shirt, and the buttons were not buttoned because I was in a hurry to get out of the house. I get here, and I go to button my shirt, and my shirt won't button. You know why? Because I put it on upside down. What can I say? You know, I mean, when you're dedicated, and when you're dedicated to a public service that we provide, you know, nothing stands in the way, except I took time before the show started to put my shirt on properly and button my buttons. Gentlemen?
Well, we're glad to see you button your buttons. Now, to start with, if you're looking at the temperature, it looks like fall is on the way. We haven't had our first frost yet that I know of, but I got a feeling that we're going to see it in about at least the next week or the next 2 weeks. And when that happens, you're going to see a lot of leaves come down and a lot of raking that needs to be done. And hopefully we'll be able to get the city cleaned up and ready for the winter weather.
The sounds of silence. I'm letting you guys run. I'm still.
I thought you want to talk about the redevelopment district.
Well, no. I mean, you guys might have something more important to say. I mean, you want me to talk about someone's intelligence quotient?
I was looking up. So, since you want to talk about the redevelopment district, and I heard on a
now,
little
we're
bit.
talking about the redevelopment district here and not the commission, right?
Oh, the commission. The commission.
Okay.
I saw on the internet looking for some other information, and I walked across some social media website, which I normally am never on, but somebody had some concerns about the SOLA district property, and that's what I looked at while we were starting, is it something weird, and I don't know what weird is good or bad, but the SOLA site is, if you look on Beacon, it's two sites, north and south, with an alley going in between it, which in my development arena, if you have a public alley going through your property, you have to vacate that. And this has been at least a year, maybe two, they haven't vacated the alley because we're going to build this hotel across a public alley. And I know that there are utilities in that alley. So a little background, if you go to the Planning Commission and you vacate a public right-of-way, an alley, a road, whatever, improved, unimproved, whatever, you vacate it, you can vacate a public roadway with approval of the commissioners of the council and the mayor. And we could do that, as long as no one's, and if you vacate, the person on each side of it gets half and half. But you cannot vacate the easements through the public right-of-way. So if there's phone, gas, electric, get water, sewer, whatever's in there, they still have an easement through there. So if you look on Beacon, I am not sure why, which is one of the reasons I am very concerned about SOLA, is they haven't vacated the alley. There's still a public alley going through the SOLA site. The other point I want to bring up when we started was the SOLA site has a north and a south parcel, the old police station and the news dispatch, when we all remember those. And it's now under two different LLCs, MC Lakefront LLC and South Lakeside LLC. And what I was getting at is I saw on the internet that somebody was researching, you can research these LLCs, they're under somebody's name. An LLC is created, and there's somebody is running the LLC, or somebody's name is attached to the LLC. It's somebody online. You can go online and look. I was trying to look myself. Whose name's attached to the LLC, and why are their names attached to the LLC? Because I understand this is redevelopment, did some swapping for property and money back when the Mirror administration, and then they promise this to SOLA if they build the hotel and the townhomes. and we're offering some money, the value, because they're very valuable sites, on these 2 pieces of property, which are really 1 piece of property, because they're building on the whole block, they're not building on half of a block. So the whole thing is, the quandary is weird, and that's what you want to bring.
Yeah, that's what, again, I'm glad somebody else did research because I'm tired of doing research. But there was a situation at the Michigan City Council meeting that an amendment to the ordinance creating this whole SOLA project was on first reading, amending the ownership of these properties. Supposedly, Skylar York said that Skylar was involved with it, but the attorney basically acknowledged, his name is Cernick, basically he acknowledged to the city council that he made a mistake. He made a mistake by not including 2 letters adjacent to the LLC that would allow the city of Michigan City to retain possession of this property if the SOLA concept didn't go through.
Because I just looked on the internet, there's a MC
That is correct.
Lakefront LLC. There's also in Indiana a Lakefront LLC.
Now, he acknowledged. Now this is one of the high-priced attorneys on the redevelopment commission, who basically gets a check every month to make sure all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And in a public meeting, he stood up and acknowledged his mistake. Well, my suggestion is I'll accept this acknowledgement. I'll accept this delaying tactic. But there were also grammatical errors on this paperwork that was presented to the council, that was brought up by an existing city council member. And so since these mistakes are materializing now, maybe the entity that initiated this paperwork, whether it's Skylar York or Cernick, who admitted to the mistake, maybe they should give some of that money back to the redevelopment commission for the errors and for these delaying tactics that may prevent the SOLA property from going through. Basically, the intent was for the redevelopment commission, in a roundabout way, to retain possession of the SOLA property until such time that whoever the SOLA people are were able to obtain financing. As it stands right now, they haven't got their financing yet.
And I did read on the internet that said that they have until December 19th to put up or shut up.
That's correct. And if they
Coming fast.
And if they can't put up, then the entire project is moot. The property then goes back to the redevelopment commission, the ownership of the property and so on, and they got to start all over again.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
That's not good.
That was discussed at the city council
So
meeting.
back where I started, if you were going to do how many hundreds of millions of dollars a project?
300 something.
300 million, and we haven't, in my mind, any corporation hasn't gone through the first step of vacating the alley that runs through their property. What are we doing? That is an elementary, basic first step, not for SOLA, for anybody. If the redevelopment wanted to pitch this to somebody, the very first thing, and I know that somebody had called my private office and asked about this because they did an Alta survey for that piece. They asked what do we do, and I told them the first thing you ought to be doing is vacating the alley, which really in Indiana is one meeting to the planning commission. It's pretty simple. I don't know why that hasn't happened. Not for SOLA, for anybody. Anyone to look at this property would look at Beacon and be, why are there 2 pieces of property? Why is there an alley run through it? What's in the alley? Phone, cable, gas, electric, sewer, water. What's in the alley? Because we got to pay to move that.
Well, I'm going to take it a step further, or a step forward or backwards. Someone within the redevelopment commission, whoever that individual is, should take the time to read Title 36 and find out the responsibilities of the redevelopment commission and how their planning and development this particular chapter 25, 36, 7, 25, 1 through, I think it's 10 or whatever it is, 10 or 11. Maybe the Redevelopment Commission, Skylar York is involved, but just maybe he hasn't read Title 36 thoroughly, because there have been mistakes and pitfalls and change of venues, and there have been maneuvering and moving a property from here to there under this ownership here and there, which is creating a mishmash, when in reality the developer hasn't had his finances stabilized yet. Why are we going through years and years and years and years of stuff when they haven't obtained financing yet? Again, I'll go back to, 2014, when I found the first discrepancy with the Redevelopment Commission, and I probably found 3 or 4 of them since then. And this just is another addition to the mistakes that have been made. What I see is that the individuals who are appointed to the Redevelopment Commission, or whoever taking over the responsibility of the Redevelopment Commission, whether it's a legal advisor or somebody, or Mr. York, all of their I's are not dotted and their T's are not crossed, and they're just spinning the city's wheels. And in the meantime, over the last 3 years, the Redevelopment Commission has spent over $30 million, not necessarily all on solar, but they have spent a lot of money. And if the entity doesn't obtain his financing or their financing, are we going to get repaid by all of these people who created all of this paperwork and all of this mishmash? Are they going to pay us back for? Are they going to pay back to the TIF districts the funds that generated from new construction on a TIF district? Are they going to pay the Redevelopment Commission back?
Nope.
I doubt it.
What concerns me is developers in the private world that I deal with. They are ready to go. I've said this before. They come and they are ready to go. So maneuvering for a year or two in paperwork, and I hand it to Mayor Angie. I think she's the one that said, "Put up or shut up, get out. I'm not fooling around anymore." That all these maneuvers concern me because obviously they're not ready to go. When we did Blue Chip, right?
Yeah.
Those guys came in, they moved, they built, it was done. There was no, they were pushing the city to go. We want steel in the ground, we want concrete. There was no maneuvers at all.
Well, I got a feeling that JW Marriott is ready to go, but what they are looking at is just what you were talking about, the vacation of an alley and a number of others.
I think JW Marriott's ready to go, but they're a very good corporation, and they're looking at lots of things, maneuvers and paperwork going, wait a minute.
Yeah, I agree.
There's things that concern me here. Are we really ready to go? Because it doesn't seem like these people are ready to go. We're not putting our good name and our money, but the cities and municipalities do that all the time. We're going to put our name and our good money, whether it's their paperwork or whatever it is, and then it just fritters away and we don't get no money back. Money's gone.
And after I had a conversation to talk to a retired certified public accountant who provided me some guidance where to look in regards to a chart of accounts. And on page 3 of this, a chart of accounts, basically it identifies cash, savings accounts, petty cash balance, accounts of receivables, undeposited funds, inventory assets, prepaid insurances, and vehicles. And that's just, oh, no, there's more on the other side here. Liabilities, company credit cards, accrued liabilities, account payable, payroll liabilities, notes of payable, common stock, preferred stock, retained earnings, and so on and so on and so on. Under Indiana law, the Redevelopment Commission, first of all, it didn't do this, but under Indiana law, it is supposed to provide this information to Gateway as to their financial prowess. Since I brought this issue up in 2022, they are now working with Baker and Tilly, and they are now making the reports. But there is still 8 years worth of unknown financial assets that came from 2014 to 2022. In my mind, it's unaccounted for, other than in the minutes of the Redevelopment Commission. And the Redevelopment Commission was supposed to, on a yearly basis, or a quarterly basis, they were supposed to provide this information to Gateway, so that eventually it could get down to the State Board of Accounts to see if everything's on an up and up. Well, I've been on the redevelopment commission for a long time, and I pointed out discrepancies about them arguing over the color of paint on a flagpole and so on, and they have been doing things, and still this money is gone. They have like $14+ million in the bank, but when you go back to 2014, they also had $14+ million in the bank. But during that time span, 8, 9, 10, 13 or 14 years, they're getting roughly about $1 million bi-yearly, $1 million. A lot of money is gone. And who is obtaining this money? And one of the individuals who is on the payroll. Oh, by the way, the Bloxham property, they are still paying an attorney for the retainer on the legality of the Bloxham property. He's got his hand out. I don't know who he is, but he is a beneficiary of according to the minutes, he is a beneficiary of a check for his involvement in the Bloxham property that hasn't been an issue for how many years now? I'm just saying, somebody has to look at it, and when you see what is happening to that particular paperwork being amended at the city council level, just to include 2 letters, MC, on one of the LLCs, something just don't add up.
I was wrong about, you go to Beacon, it's LaPorte County's Beacon, look at the old city police site and the News Dispatch site, and there was something else, I don't remember what there, but if you look at it, there are actually 3 parcels. The north half of the block, the south half of the block, and this other little parcel is still owned by Michigan City Redevelopment Commission. So is that another piece of paperwork that's missing out of this agreement, as there's another little piece of parcel?
But supposedly, excuse me, Bob, supposedly this agreement is etched in stone beyond a shadow of a doubt. There are no pitfalls, but yet a seated city council member pointed out to Mr. Cernak and Mr. York with the Redevelopment Commission that there are grammatical errors in the paperwork. Now, supposedly when Pat Boy was on the city council, she was very conscientious.
He's an English teacher.
And she understood what is necessary to write legislation. Who is proofreading this legislation when you have a seated city council members pointing out errors? Who's proofreading it on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission?
Well, I'm going to throw this one out because it's still speculation, but it's something that I think you have to look at. When you start to get on the north end in Michigan City, you start to get into situations where there potentially are title problems to the land itself because of how far back it goes and because of how sometimes the very first subdivisions laid out were not quite the way the subdivisions would be laid out today.
Well, what was in the north end of Michigan City? What was the economic driver of Michigan City and why we are here?
It was the harbor and the lumber that came in and out.
On the harbor and the lumber that came on and went on to railroads.
Yes.
Right.
And those are the worst when you look at title issues.
So
and there is a survey. There is a survey of nearly all of north of Michigan City, public documents in the surveyor's office. He's passed, John Doyle did it, and if I remember right, it went all the way from 9th Street, all the way to Trail Creek, to the rail, to the Amtrak rail.
yeah.
So that doesn't clear up title, but it gives you a very good roadmap in which you can clear up title. And there is even on this piece that we're talking about, the north half of this block has a little piece in the northwest corner, if you look at Beacon, that was taken when we rounded off the road around it. Because it was an old platted lot, and it's got this little triangle. That is why the developer called me to understand what this piece was. Well, it was dedicated to the right-of-way when we rounded off the curb across that lot. And it didn't matter because it was Michigan City Police versus Michigan City right-of-way. No one really cared, but now they're going to go to a private individual. I mean, I suspect, and we're going to find out, I think we'll find out sooner than later, that these maneuvers that are happening are trying to buy time because they don't have the money lined up. And good, kudos to Mayor Angie if she told him December 19th, I'm done. Because you can maneuver around and create paperwork, and I need to see an LLC, and I got to talk to my bankers, and they want to see the property, right? Especially, it's not, you're not got a powerful person, you probably got some really good
have
attorneys.
lawyers going through
Yeah,
all
I want to see the paperwork. I want to guarantee before we put any money into it that we have everything, all our ducks in a row and everything lined up. So Michigan City does these maneuvers of the LLCs and pieces and that and agreements and whatever else that, again, I'll go back to most private people. If they're going through these maneuvers, they're either concerns about their funding or their corporate people are concerned about the legitimacy of getting this property or whatever this property deal is, because they're going to make sure they dot all their I's and they cross all their T's. They do this everywhere. I've been meetings with many high-powered attorneys across the nation, meeting with some of the most high-powered attorneys in Sears and Roebuck, and Sears had a group of attorneys, and all they worked on, all they did every day was to make sure they pushed problems and potential problems onto somebody else. They made sure that if it all went south, Sears Corporation was not liable for any of it. Somebody else was going to be.
And was protected in terms of their assets.
That's all they did. That's all their group attorneys did. And I think, what's the hotel company? I guarantee you. I mean, you look at Walmart. Walmart has inside counsel and outside. They have teams of attorneys that protect the corporation. They will not get involved in something if something starts going south.
I would also speculate that in terms of that Bloxham property, I got a feeling that there may be some situations there where people are hesitant either to buy or to sell because of title situations. Remember, that creek was not the way it looks today. It was more spread out. It wandered a lot. It had various tributaries. And anytime you get involved in that land down there, you have those potential problems.
And you don't know what's under it.
No.
They built those properties with before attorneys got to be where they are now, and corporate world got to be where they are now. They built those properties to get things done, and most of them are fill. What fill? I don't know, but you could find out.
Yeah, you'd have to do soil boring, but yes.
And they had meandering, and Trail Creek was a meandering river. We dug it out and channelized it and make it perfect so we could use it.
Yeah.
And you got properties that, not just like Bob says, not that you got filled, but like Bob says, that you have legitimate title issues on meanders and what is natural and what was filled. And sometimes, and corporate attorneys do this the best. Believe me, they do this best. They don't, if you get a new house or you get a title policy, usually it's 3 years. It used to be 20 years. And you can request a 20-year review. Corporate guys will go back to the day it was created. And you could do that. The Port County Courthouse, the recorder has every document from the day it started, from homesteading to the day it is today. And it's not easy, but you can go back and follow that chain of title all the way back. And if you're looking at somewhere around Trail Creek, I guarantee you they will.
Well, that chain of title can get to be very difficult when you're going back 6, 7, and 8 generations. Because if you just leave out 1 or 2 entities and all of a sudden they pop up, that creates a real
You bring up a good point.
Yes.
If I'm looking for some old deed, I might hop a couple generations because there might be no documents and all of a sudden it'll show up again. It doesn't mean it's not there. It's just not documented. It is there. And you can start searching. They'll pay people to page by page by page to search and find the gap. Because they want to see that chain of title. They want to not see that chain broken. Because somebody could come back later and just say something.
Well, the one good thing, though, that land has become so valuable that you now can afford to pay somebody to go in and do the research on those gaps if you're really interested in purchasing it.
So
And you better-
one thing we go on is that we're losing talent in a lot of things. One thing we're losing talent, we talked about it before, people that can't read cursive. Most of this documentation is in cursive and very highlighted, flowery cursive. It's you have to train yourself to read it. But
They have beautiful handwriting.
beautiful, just beautiful.
You
handwriting.
can't read it, but it's beautiful.
Done with a pen, a fountain pen, and an inkwell. Oh, it's really cool. But we're losing. We are nearly out of the people that know how to do that title research and understand how the books were generated, how you could follow a chain of title. There's very, very few people anywhere that even know how to look through transfer books and chain of title and dates and names and how it was done. That's getting very far few between.
And I can recall seeing some drawings of the city of Michigan City, the North End, in early years, and seeing the various train tracks going through this property and whether those train tracks have been vacated, abandoned, the ownership. There are a lot of concerns underground, not only water,
Yeah.
not only water, but there are a lot of concerns. And you would think that an entity of the stature that has over $14 million in the bank, somebody would provide a title search on all of this land as support mechanism to make this project.
You bring up a good point. You think that when solar came around, especially since
Yeah.
the hotel came in, they would have already produced a title policy
I
all the way
haven't seen-
back to have it. I'm sure they didn't, to have it in their possession. That when they ask, here you go, thank you. What else do you want? Here you go, thank you. Could we move forward? We want this built. None of this maneuvers. Here's the title policy. We paid for it. There are it was Indiana Abstract was one of the biggest title companies in LaPorte County forever and ever and ever since really the dawn of time. And then they went out of business, and I understand Meridian Title holds all their research. So I don't pick
Which
one or
company holds all their-
Meridian.
Meridian.
So I don't pick one or the other, but I know that Meridian holds Indiana Abstract's title research, and that is invaluable. What Indiana Abstract had, and now Meridian Title has. So I guess the redevelopment would have to hire Meridian Title to go back and research and give them. I think corporate would probably only ask for a 20-year at max, but you could easily go back to the dawn of time. What was the one thing out there, not just
Well,
rails?
yeah.
What was the one thing out there that was not just rails up there at the north end that I don't think most people realize was there?
You hit me.
The rail, and they had a turn,
Oh, yeah, that's called a
a
roundhouse.
roundhouse.
That's what's the old Monon roundhouse.
They had the roundhouse there,
When,
and it takes a whole train and
Yeah.
turns it,
Well,
and it's huge.
no, they wouldn't take the whole train.
Well,
They take the
the
engine.
The engine,
Yeah.
return
Engine
the
in a
engine,
coal car, yeah.
yeah, a whole engine, it's
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
and turn the engine.
Well, now they put an engine on the front end and the back end.
Yeah, the engines go either way now.
Yeah, so they can go either way. But back then, yeah, that engine went into that roundhouse and it turned around. It was going east when it came in, and it's going west now that it's coming out.
And up north end, that's where that roundhouse was. And you could see it on the old prints.
So I guess my question is, has a title search been performed for the north end of Michigan City?
Well-
And if so, where's the results?
I think there is a title policy, but I don't think anyone's finished an American Land Title Association survey yet. I didn't do it. I know there have been questions about some SOLA wanting one, so I don't know if anyone's done one yet, but that would, America Land Title Association survey is the #1 top tier gold premier survey. You get a title policy, and the survey looks through everything and documents everything in that title policy on the face of the survey.
Are you implying that the City of Michigan City's Redevelopment Commission possibly wants to give away some property that they don't actually own?
No, I think they own it all.
Do they?
But I don't know if
Do
they
they
have
own
a
from the-
title insurance survey, which would give you the research needed to bring up any potential easements or whatever's buried under there, or ownership.
Well, if you're going to do this, you really have to get a good title insurance company, and you have to give them the time to go through it, and you're going to have to pay them to do it. But it might be, because of the value of this land now, that might be a project that the Redevelopment Commission might consider.
I don't think
doing.
a title policy, either 3 years or 20 years, would bring up anything bad about the
But you gotta
property.
go back
But
farther.
unless you, yeah, if you go back 100 years, maybe a 1% chance you'd find something. But that's where the corporate attorneys come in, right? They don't want that 1%.
Yeah.
They want everything out.
Right, in order to build a $300 million project, you want a free and clear title to this
Back to
property.
the start. By the way, the start goes back to Martin Van Buren. For any of you that are really historical people.
Why?
Why, that's when we became a designated, it was the
Didn't know.
Northwest Territory. We became part of the.
Yeah, because the old title policies, if anyone's got an old title that's thick and it goes back to the day the Indians gave them the ground.
Yeah.
It goes that far. It follows the title from the day they had the territory from the Indians and the United States of America gave the grant by homestead.
Well, I'm just going back to my inquiry pertaining to a chart of accounts. A chart of accounts only provides a composite figure as to how much was spent into a specific category. Then you have to look at this specific category to find out itemized invoices and so on. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
An assumption?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you
Well-
could go to the city controller ought to have.
Yeah, but what I'm leading up to, I couldn't even get through the door because I'd have to file a Freedom of Information Act on the issue. And who owns that property that SOLA sits on? If not the city of Michigan City, us taxpayers, right? Or is there some other individual who might own it?
Now it's MC Lakefront LLC and South Lakeside LLC.
But isn't that an entity of the city?
I don't know.
So many questions
Somebody
here.
was
Lee.
looking into it, and I'm sure it has some tangential legal connection, I would hope.
Let me throw out one more wrinkle, and then we can talk about something that's not quite so utilitarian, whatever you want to call it. But when we became part of the Northwest Territory, people were given riparian rights. Now, they got riparian rights because they decided that they would assign Virginia law, common law, to the Northwest Territory. Virginia common law was the only one that had riparian rights.
Really?
Of the colonies.
Huh.
So as a result of that, in all of the Northwest Territory, we got riparian rights. I didn't have anything to do for a week one time. And
Because
I said,
riparian rights, and without riparian rights, you have no commerce.
Yeah.
And that's what they were protecting.
Okay. Something a
Well,
little
last
more simple.
thing, again, state law. Redevelopment Commission oversees the City of Michigan City's Department of Redevelopment. Established under state law, the commission is empowered to clean, plan, and redevelop blighted areas and to undertake economic development in previously undeveloped or in developing areas within the city limits. That includes a lot of I's being dotted and T's being crossed, and as time reaches its ultimate deadline of sometime in December, I don't think all of the I's and the T's have been punctuated properly.
Why don't you make a prediction? December 19th, what I read. Do you think that'll be extended, or will they meet it? Or
Well,
what happens?
just like the Nobel Prize, it's going to be overlooked. It's going to not.
I agree. It'll be pushed because we have a very good hotel corporation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for part of it. We don't know about the other part.
Well, maybe that's the best thing that can happen. The hotel corporation takes over the whole thing and says, "We're going to do this corporate-wise. That's it. Everything out. We're not maneuvering. We're ready to go."
But then if a hotel corporation wasn't one of the initial instigators of this solar project, okay? And so basically what was discussed at the city council meeting as if this issue does not go through with this entity obtaining financing by the 19th, they have to start from scratch all over
They'll
again.
let the hotel take over.
Yeah, they'll do some things.
But they can't, according to what was said on the city council, they can't just change the legislation, change the headline of all of this
Well, they go
paperwork.
back to the redevelopment commission and change it.
Yeah.
No, it has to start
It'll
over.
cost more money.
It has to start over. Yeah, it's gonna cost more money, but it has to start over, it has
Yeah.
to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
Because you can't pick up where somebody left off
No.
when they weren't financially solvent to begin with.
No.
Just for your general information, Martin Van Buren was president of the United States before the Civil War. So you have an idea.
What president was he? The 7th president, or the 9th or something?
You would have.
It was on a Seinfeld show, and Kramer was going to get beat up by the Van Buren gang, and he gave him the sign of 7 or something, and they said, "Oh, you must be a Van Buren." That's the only reason.
You really brought out the Now,
He was a very early president.
I have to apologize because I was wrong. Last time I thought that we met, I thought that the South Shore building was going to be 10 stories. It now appears that it will be 12 stories.
12 stories.
So
Bob,
these
you
two
are
were
not,
right, and I was
according to me, you are not authorized to apologize. You don't have that responsibility.
Well, okay. But the great thing about it is, since I never bet money, I never get into trouble when I'm wrong. So people out there might want to think about that.
It says 12 floors, and it's going to be topped off in 2 months with 220 market rate apartments. I don't like the market rate apartments. That's not going to turn out.
The market rate, again, since that project is basically subsidized by federal funds, it basically allows certain entities to move in there regardless of their social status. Of lower income people has the same opportunities to move in as an upper income people based on the amount of money that they make.
Now you're talking about the former Memorial Hospital site.
No, I'm
No,
talking about
11th.
I'm talking about the 11th Street
11th
project.
Street.
Oh, okay.
But the 11th Street project, if it's government subsidized, in
Section
one
8 or Section 42.
right, low to moderate income people based on their income will become eligible to be tenants in that building. That's the way the law is written.
And there's a concern lately because I don't remember what it was. I think Section 42 or maybe Section 8. The Federal Housing Authority has said that you are not allowed to stay on that forever. We're going to start to stop paying people. You can't just be on there. You have to get a job. You have to show. You can't just stay on those forever. And that really hurts because there are a lot of people that need that money, and whether they've gone out and helped themselves or not. The apartment rates are set, in my mind, high. $1,200, $1,400 a month, which in my mind is a crazy number. Because I don't know how anyone affords that without the federal subsidies.
Right. But the other part of it is, when you start to talk about the 1,200 or the 1,400, does that include utilities, or is it without utilities?
I know, but I think that number for anyone working 2 jobs at McDonald's or whatever, entry level people starting out, I don't know how you afford that if you take away the federal subsidies, and that hits directly on everything Michigan City and most municipalities are doing. This workforce housing depends a large amount on these subsidies. Because these developers won't do it if they can't charge $1,200 a month.
Yeah, and if you research prior programs, you'll find that I made that statement years ago.
Well, the question here is $1,200 or $1,400. If in fact that includes utilities, that's not going to. Well, by
I would doubt it does, but
well, that's your heat, your light, your water, and your sanitation. If it includes those, that's not really out of bounds, because if you go someplace else, they're going to have to pay it anyway.
yeah. If it includes it, no, it's not out of bounds. But a quick thing, I just looked it up. But Van Buren is the 8th president.
Yeah.
But that gives us a good segue to what I was just reading today with AI, and Michigan City's got a data center coming in. I haven't drove by. You drove by yet? See how it is?
Not lately, no.
So the thing that's really concerning to the world and America is, and I've talked about this before, China has been for decades getting energy supply more than they need at a very cheap rate. China is decades ahead of the world. And anyone going over now, the reports are coming, people go to China and look at China, Germany, any European country, America, go looking at China, they're like, we're in deep trouble here.
I hate to say this, but they were getting it out of coal, to be honest.
Oh, no, they've done everything.
Well, yeah.
Coal, nuclear, wind, solar. China has had a program in place for at least a decade to produce double the amount of power. They're right now producing 2 Germany's worth of power every year. They're using 1 Germany's worth of power every year. So China has cheap electricity, an abundance of electricity. They have twice as much as they need, and they're doubling that every year.
But they're building coal generating stations.
And they're building coal, they're building hydro, they're building wind, they're doing everything. Nuclear, everything. China is all in on producing electricity, knowing AI needs so much electricity to run. They are far, far above us, and they are 10 years ahead at least. And everyone that goes over there and looks at it realizes what trouble we're in America, because we have a problem on the East Coast, not having enough problem with blackouts and brownouts, trying to take power from the Midwest, because we have a pretty good amount, not as much as we need, but we have a pretty good amount of power here. But we have not found out a way to get all the power we need, to double our power every year. We have not done it, and we are doubling our use, but we're not doubling the supply.
Well, you're going to have to build nuclear generating stations.
Everything. You have to pick everything.
But what you're going to have to do is start with the small nuclear portable
Yes.
stations.
Coal, and the article today was, could we even catch up with the natural gas we have that we're blessed with in America to use it to power up everything we need? Now, the other side of that, China is taking a risk that the rest of the world has not. By doubling their supply every year, and they are risking, we all know technology advancements, what is it, every 5 or 7 years, doubles its speed and makes in half the amount of power it requires. And some of the people are saying that some of the China AI chips have found a way to be as powerful as they need to be by using 40% less electricity.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's what saves America and the world, that technology advances, they use half the electricity with double the computing power.
Except that one of the situations we're now running into is with the amount of natural gas that Northern Europe, is getting from Russia, we need to cut that off, which means that we're going to have to export a lot of LNG, liquefied natural gas, in order to make up for what they
But Europe gets theirs through the pipeline.
Well,
Different kind of transportation.
Pipeline from Russia.
From Russia.
Yes.
So I don't know if we can meet that. We have to put it on a boat and LNG across the ocean. I don't know if we can meet that.
Well, we're going to have to if we're going to knock Russia supplying Northern Europe out. And you know Russia with Putin in there is going to do some more miserable things. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Because if you look back in America, America became the powerhouse of energy because, who was it, Rockefeller and the steel baron,
Yeah.
they got into a fight about putting oil on trains, and Rockefeller said, I'm not right. He said, I'm not doing that, I'm putting a pipeline, and he pretty much wiped out train. Because you can transport so much more in a pipeline 24 hours a day, 365 days a year than you could ever transport on a train, a truck, or a boat.
Yeah.
By far.
He's talking about both oil and natural gas.
Yeah, well, and then that's how we transport most of our liquids
Yeah.
across the country, from all the way from Canada all the way down to the Gulf of America and Mexico, and that's how we're on a continent, and we can transfer this with pipelines far more efficient than we could ever do a boat, a train, or
But we're going to have to figure out a way to feed Northern Europe unless we're going to let Russia continue to do it.
Last I heard, there was enough natural gas off the coast of Britain, I believe 10 or 20
Now you're talking
times
about the North Sea.
than what they would ever need, and they just got to go get it.
Okay.
And then they could pipe it themselves, and they could be I always say this, when the money came along from COVID and what was it, ERA or whatever, the ARPA funds, I always told every elected official we should take that money and make ourselves resilient. We cannot depend on things that might not be there tomorrow. We can't spend on things just to keep it running. We need to make ourselves resilient. And America can do that. We have food, we have commodities, we have resources, we have everything we need.
Which, by the way, now, just today, Trump announced that he may have to install significant tariffs against China because China is refusing to supply what's known as rare earth minerals in the degree or the amount that they had indicated they would do so to various countries throughout the world, and especially the United States. Now, one of the things that happened is, as a result of China giving us a low-cost supply of rare earth minerals, a lot of mines closed up. we're going to have to get those mines reopened again. Many of them are in places like Wyoming, Montana, and places like this, but we do have it. It's just a matter of mining it. First of all, opening the mines and then mining it and having a place to get it refined. But that's the next step that we're going to have to take.
The biggest boom right now in mining rare earth came from somewhere we never thought because we overlooked it, Arkansas.
Yeah.
There's a huge depository of rare earth minerals, easily accessible in Arkansas. And I was reading an article, they had a town of like 60 people. And now it's a boom town because everyone's coming there to get lithium. But I thought for sure, because this is going to tangentially go to a different subject, I thought for sure China was playing chicken with Trump, knowing that his hands would be tied right now in harvest season because China bought a lot of our soybeans. And now they're not buying our soybeans. And I think, and everyone says they're getting them from Brazil or whatever else. It doesn't matter. There's not enough soybeans they could buy from somebody else. They need our soybeans. But Trump is now ratcheted it up.
He's ratcheted it up because when he starts to put those tariffs on China, that's how he's going to pay the farmers who are growing soybeans that they can't sell. So he's going to undercut that situation, I think, by using the tariffs that he's charging China in order to pay them for the soybeans that they can't sell.
I was glad you brought that up because I don't like subsidies, and I don't like Trump's going to pay the farmers. They're good, salt of the earth people. They don't like to take money. If I was Trump, I would take the tariff money, and I would buy the corn and beans at a market rate that they can break even. There's an article just now in Zero Hedge about farmers are in big trouble. And they spell out how much money they're losing per acre. And I've heard the same thing come from local farmers. He would buy the corn and beans and give it to manufacturers of whatever needed in America, and then we would pay less for whatever, our corn cereal or whatever. We would have a reduction in our price. Use the capitalist way to reduce the price of things so that we enjoy while we're paying the tariffs.
That's another way to do it rather than a direct.
Don't just give it to the farmers. Buy their corn and beans. Give it to Kellogg or whoever produces things, or Doritos or PepsiCo, and then reduce the price of Doritos or tortilla shells or cereal boxes, and then we get to take part of that reduction because we paid the tariffs.
But that's commodities like corn. Soybeans is a different type of commodity. A lot of that goes into feeding hogs, feeding cattle, and this kind of thing. So
yeah, and maybe that would reduce beef prices because every farmer I know, beef is outrageously going through the roof. They are all moving to cattle. So we will see the price of beef, capitalist market, it will go up for a little while and then it's going to plummet down below. We saw that in hogs in the last 3 to 5 years. Everyone got into hogs. All of a sudden we had an overabundance of hogs. Now hog prices were cheap. We saw bacon was outrageous. It's starting to come down. Same thing will happen to cattle. But yes, we could use it for feed, for whatever feed. But I don't want him giving money directly to farmers. He should buy their beans and corn. I thought for sure that Trump would make a deal and they would work this out right now. This is October, November, when we're harvesting all this. If he gives money directly to the farmers, and you could drive by the co-op, Stark County, Pulaski, Jasper. If you drive by a co-op, sometimes you go down 421 towards Purdue. You're going to see a big granary there. Mm-hmm. You will see them just stacking corn and beans up on the ground with a tarp. And what's going to happen to it after weeks or months? It gets rotten, it molds, you throw it away. That's why I don't want them to see them to give them money. I want that crop to be put into our economic capitalistic worlds to save us money on whatever we buy. Those grains can go in, it could go into more, I don't think it could go into more gasoline because the refinery capacity is limited, but I'm sure Kellogg's buys so much corn and beans, it's not even funny. Oh, yeah. And if they're getting it for free from the government, I hope they would, and that would be the agreement, they'd reduce a box of cereal by half price. That would be nice.
You know, you were talking about minerals. About 5 years ago, I bought some rare earth stock out of Fishers, Indiana, and they work in conjunction with Purdue, refining from the coal companies around the Kentucky area and so on. And I did a little research on a computer because my background is in printing. I started in the printing trade in 1970 at the old individual letter.
This was after the Civil War, by the way.
Right.
1870.
And in the printing industry that I grew up in, an entity that was the major product of printing was lead.
Yeah.
Okay, the lead contained tin and antimony, and I have an accumulation from 1970 to 2016 of quite a few hundreds of pounds of antimony and tin in the lead content that I've got. You're talking about recycling new material. My material that I have has already been recycled that contains the necessary antimony. Antimony is on a periodic table, I believe, as well as tin. And so I'm now looking. I made a inroad to people who refine stuff, and I've got feelers out as to who may want a couple thousand pounds of purified lead that can.
And in the ink business, what happened to ink in the last 30, 40 years? What kind of ink did we all move to?
Well, it was an oil-based ink, then it went to a rubber-based ink.
And now we have what? Soy-based?
Now we got a soy-based ink. Yeah.
A soy-based ink. Wonder where they get that from.
I wonder where they get
and
the
what
soy
are we
from.
sitting on in America?
Yeah.
A whole bunch of soy.
Yeah. I learned something. I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah.
Most ink is soy-based now.
Well, again, us old, long in the tooth people, basically I'm a pack rat. I save anything and anything and everything that I think there may be substantial value sometime in the future.
His wife does understand that he is a pack rat, that's for sure.
I want to throw something back at Bob because I read this week that, and yesterday I also saw it, that we are going to get into the boat building business. So
Yeah.
Burns Harbor wants to get in the boat building business, the icebreakers.
Yeah.
But Trump was over in Finland, just gave them a big contract so they can make icebreakers. I thought, wait a minute, we can make those here.
Yeah, we can. But if it's just icebreakers, we can make tugs here. We can make all sorts of small craft here. And we got to start looking at that. Icebreakers was one I thought of, but I also thought of tugboats, because you're going to need tugboats on all these rivers and the river traffic in terms of barges, and we could also make barges here. We get the steel mills right there to make them out.
So I thought somebody must have been listening to Bob because Burns Harbor just realized, put out a press release, said they want to get into the boat building business.
Yeah.
I wonder where they heard that from. That sounds like a good idea.
I believe that
Except I wanted it here in Indiana.
Yeah, we want Michigan City.
Yeah.
Over Burns Harbor.
I believe in an indirect way over the last 13 years, many positive ideas have came from Larry Curley and Mo's show that maybe has spread the word. Basically, what I've said over the years in the past is residents have to take new attitude. Well, what is going on in Washington is, if not a political party is initiating that same concept of taking a new attitude towards the people who've been living off the trough for the last 40 years. Really, taking a new attitude, make people think of there's maybe a possibility to build a better mousetrap. There is reason why we should support these innovations that, again, you're hearing it from a Democrat, but there's reasons why we should support some of these innovations that are put forth by the Republican Party. That's called compromise, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called compromise. It isn't all one way, but if you look at the trough for the last 40 years, it's always been one way, with nothing, no changes. Because everybody is getting their free cheese and free utilities and free this and free that. I see a movement afoot to make not only the community, the state, but then the United States. I see it making better approaches. Look at Hegseth talking about the overweight National Guard people that are now patrolling the streets of Chicago. Again, when I was in the military, we were on a straight and narrow. Oh, and congratulations to the Navy on their 250th year. That's coming.
Yeah.
They call them swabbies at the time. Why did they call them swabbies, Bob?
Because the idea was you kept the deck clean by swabbing it.
Well, now think about then. There's a lot of boats, a lot of ships that have been
Well-
decommissioned. Maybe you could bring back the Swabbies and they come in and clean up some of those usable ships and put them out on the seas.
Right now with the training they're getting, they're too valuable to use them as swabbies. You gotta use them for other things. But let me also say, when he's talking about components and things like this, also you have to look at the supply chain. And what I was looking at when I came up with that was not only the components, but also the supply chain. Supply chain for large engines. What do tugboats have? What do icebreakers have? Very large diesel engines. The headquarters for Cummins, well, it used to be Cummins Engine, now it's just Cummins, because they also make large machinery. But the headquarters of the best built diesel engines in the world, Columbus, Indiana. All you got to do is bring those diesels up here and attach them to a barge, attach them to a icebreaker, attach them to a tugboat, get the steel right out of Gary.
Yep.
The supply chain is perfect.
Yep. So somebody will listening to you. We can do that.
Well, what do we got? 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 minutes, 4 minutes,
Yeah,
2 minutes to go.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up, Bob.
Well, have a happy fall. Enjoy the fall weather. It's marvelous. The trees will look great, but you got to get to them before we get the first frost and the heavy winds and the heavy rain, because they'll knock all the leaves down. But do that within the next 2 weeks.
We got perfect weather. Enjoy it.
I want to give kudos to the Michigan City Michigan City High School band program. They have reached a certain pinnacle of the doorstep of state competition with their marching band prowess. The school city has introduced this facet of the arts back into, and these kids are working their tails off just as much as the football players or the basketball players. And was it last night, 2 nights ago, Wednesday night, they had a free function of the jazz band, and the jazz band played a free concert, and that theater at Michigan City High School was almost 3/4 full of parents who are now experiencing what these kids can produce utilizing their instruments. I guess that's about my wrap-up. Again, consider Michigan City High School band and their prowess and what they're doing. I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements or criticism of this program is greatly appreciated. Please contact show's co-producers Bob Pollock, Dave Bila, or Tony Hendricks with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbila1@hotmail.com, or Tony at emailhem@yahoo.com. Or you may direct your ideas for any future shows to our one and only pain in the neck staff writer, who didn't have much to say today because he forgot how to put his shirt on properly. The showing of our program will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m., Monday evening at 7, Monday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. on Channel 99. You may also watch our program on YouTube, 99 and Navigate News and Views, 99 and Navigate News and Views. That is, if Tony is able to convey from Andy to his computer.
It's updated.
That's updated. Sometimes a slip of the lip can sink a ship. Occasionally he may forget. I want to thank everybody for watching, and make it a good day.